قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, إثبات أن التوسل بالأنبياء والأولياء جائز. Confirmation that tawassul by the prophets and the saints is permissible. وأنه ليس شركا كما تقول الوهابية, and that it's not paganism as the Wahhabis say. اعلم أنه لا دليل حقيقي يدل على عدم جواز التوسل بالأنبياء والأولياء. No, there is no real evidence proving the lack of permissibility of tawassul by the prophets and the saints في حال الغيبة أو بعد وفاتهم, while they are absent or after they die. There's no real evidence to say that those prophets or saints are not present, then we can't make tawassul by them. Or to say those prophets or saints, they have passed away already, then we can't make tawassul by them. بِدَعْوَى أَنَّ ذَلِكَ عِبَادَةٌ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, claiming that this is worship of other than Allah. Saying that since they're absent, then making tawassul by them is worshiping them. Or since they have passed away already, then making tawassul by them is worshiping them. Tawassul means seeking a means. So, the meaning of the title is confirmation that seeking means by prophets and saints is permissible. It's not paganism. Seeking means by those people is not worshiping those people. Because seeking means is not worship. لأنه ليس عبادة لغير الله, because it's not a case of worshiping other than God. مجرد النداء بحي أو ميت, that one merely calls upon someone alive or dead. So what does that look like? Like calling upon someone alive is like saying, hey Fulan, yo Fulan. So this one, he's alive, he might be in your presence or he might not be. So if he is in your presence and you say, hey Fulan, calling him is not worshiping him. Now if he's not in your presence and you said, hey Fulan, that's not worshiping him, but to a Wahhabi you worshipped him. And the Wahhabi is going to say, why are you calling on him then? And you could say, it doesn't matter because it's not worshiping him. You can mind your business. How would you say just because I called on him that I worshipped him? What kind of a twisted thinking is that? So maybe the Wahhabi would say, but I don't understand. Help me understand. Why would you call somebody who's not around? So you might say, well, it's normal. It's just that you're the one who's not normal. But it is normal because I could be waiting for someone and he's late, and then I say, oh, Fulan. Or I could be thinking of a beloved and missing that one, and I might say, oh, Fulan. Just because they're not there, it doesn't mean I worship them if I called on them. You're the one who's you're saying something weird here. So that's if he were alive and in your presence, or alive and absent. What if he's already passed away? Same thing. If he passed away and I said, oh, Fulan, Wahhabi might say, how's that not worshiping him? Tell him, would you even think it is worshiping him? What kind of twisted understanding do you have? Why is not that I missed that dead one and I called out to him? Why would you think I'm worshiping him? That's Wahhabi's twisted mind, and that's his su'udhan, bad thought of another. You say about a person, hey, you're a thief. You don't call a person a thief, for example. Or like that, hey, you're a liar. What does Wahhabi do? He says, you're a grave worshipper. So, subhanallah. وَلَا مُجَرَّدُ تَعْظِيمٍ, nor is merely glorifying or honoring someone, worshipping that one. وَلَا مُجَرَّدُ الْإِسْتِغَاثَةِ بِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, nor is merely seeking help from someone other than Allah. وَلَا مُجَرَّدُ قَصْدِ قَبْرِ وَلِيٍّ لِلتَّبَرُّكِ, nor is merely going to a saint's grave to seek blessings, worship of other than Allah. وَلَا مُجَرَّدُ طَلَبِ مَا لَمْ تَجْرِ بِهِ الْعَادَةُ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ, nor is merely seeking what people don't usually seek from each other. Seeking from people what people don't usually seek from each other, that's not worshiping someone other than Allah. وَلَا مُجَرَّدُ صِيغَةِ الْإِسْتِعَانَةِ بِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, nor is merely a statement of requesting help from someone other than God, worshiping that other. Ta'ala, exalted is He. أَيْ لَيْسَ ذَلِكَ شِرْكًا, so none of that is paganism. لأنه لا ينطبق عليه تعريف العبادة, because the definition of worship doesn't apply. عند اللغويين, according to the linguists. لأن العبادة عندهم الطاعة مع الخضوع, because according to them, worship is the obedience with the humility. قال الأزهري الذي هو أحد كبار اللغويين, that one who is one of the elite linguists. He said, في كتاب تهذيب اللغة, in the book تهذيب اللغة, which means something to the effect of organizing the language. Tahdhib, when you do tahdhib of something, you make it nice, like your clothing, for example, you get yourself together for a job interview, for example. So you tuhadhibu nafsak. Naqlan an az-Zajjaj, he said in logging what az-Zajjaj said, alladhi huwa min ashharihim, az-Zajjaj, that one who's one of the most famous of them, the linguists. Al-ibadatu fi lughati al-arabi ta'atu ma'a al-khudu', worship in the language of the Arabs is the obedience with the humbleness, yani the servileness, al-khudu'. Now, so firstly, what is the Shaykh doing here? Very important, which is clear for you by now, inshallah. He is referencing here the linguists. Now, where is this tricky? It's not tricky at all, actually, but where it might seem tricky, yani, where a Wahhabi will make you stumble here. You're going to say to him, the linguists said ibadah means such and such. He's going to say to you, we're not talking the linguistic meaning here. And then you might not know what to say to that, because usually we're not talking about the linguistic meaning. When we're talking in fiqh, something has a meaning in fiqh. It has meaning in language, or has a meaning in grammar, but it has a meaning in the language. or has a meaning in the science of tajweed, reciting Quran, and it would have an original meaning in the language. Every time we talk about a different field, when we use the words of that field, we're not talking the linguistic meaning, we're talking the specialized jargon of the field. So when you tell the Wahhabi here, the linguist said about ibadah such and such, he's going to tell you, we're not talking about the linguistic meaning here. We're talking about the specialized jargon. So what are you going to say to him here? You're going to say to him here, when did you find that ibadah in the language means something different than it means in the religion? How do you even come to that? In this case, it suffices us to see what the linguist said, because ibadah only has religious meaning actually. So this is what the linguist said about the meaning of ibadah, worship. At-ta'atu ma'al khudu'. It is the obedience, the special obedience. That obedience which is on a whole nother level. The one that comes with the debasement, the lowering of oneself to the ultimate degree. Intaha, end quote. وَقَالَ مِثْلَهُ الْفَرَّاء. And Al-Farra said similar to him. He's linguist too. كما في لسان العرب لابن منظور. Just like what's in another dictionary by Ibn Manzur, that dictionary called Lisan al-Arab. The name of this title is The Tongue of the Arabs, by Ibn Manzur, very huge dictionary. وقال بعضهم, and some said about the meaning of ibadah, أقصى غاية الخشوع والخضوع, the ultimate extent of debasement and servility or humility. Intaha, end quote. Meaning ibadah is a type of thing. What's the type of thing it is? It's a humility. That's the type of thing it is. But it's not any humility. It's the ultimate of that. Like you'd say, what type of thing is a lion? So you'd say it's a feline. It's a feline like a house cat? Yeah, it is a feline like a house cat, but it's more than a house cat though. It's way, ultimate type of feline. وَقَالَ بَعْض, and some said, نِهَايَةُ التَّذَلُّلِ, it is the extent of debasement, of self-debasement. The debasement here means that towards another one though. كما يفهم ذلك من كلام شارح القاموس, just as that is understood from the talk of the explainer of Al-Qamus. Al-Qamus is a dictionary. Murtada al-Zabidi, Muhammad Murtada al-Zabidi, he is the explainer of Al-Qamus. Khatimati al-Lughawiyyin, the seal of the linguists. That means no one who came after him is of his level. وَهَذَا الَّذِي يَسْتَقِيمُ لُغَةً وَعُرْفًا, and this is what is straight, linguistically and normally. So how many linguists are mentioned here? Al-Azhari, in his book Tahdhib al-Lugha, I never looked in there. Should take a look in there, inshallah. He's copying from Az-Zajjaj, he's logging, transmitting what Az-Zajjaj says. So that's two linguists, one dictionary though, one book. Tahdhib al-Lugha is by Al-Azhari. In there, Al-Azhari logs something about Az-Zajjaj, what ibadah means. That's two linguists. And Al-Farra said similar to that. That's third linguist. Like what's in Lisan al-Arab by Ibn Manzur. Ibn Manzur is the fourth one, and his book is Lisan al-Arab. So what's here is not citing where Al-Farra''s talk is. Unless what he means here is Ibn Manzur logged that about Al-Farra'. He said Al-Farra' said like that, like what's in Lisan al-Arab. Does that statement mean, if you look in Lisan al-Arab, you'll see that Ibn Manzur cited Al-Farra'? I looked in Lisan al-Arab a long time ago, I don't remember now. So we'd have to look again. So that's 4 so far, right? Al-Azhari, Az-Zajjaj, Al-Farra', Ibn Manzur. And some said, and that's As-Subki. He's not named here. As-Subki. So that's 5. Aqsa ghayat al-khudu' al-khushu' wal-khudu'. And some said, Nihayat al-Tadallul. Who's that some? Not sure. He says, like what's understood from the talk of the explainer of Al-Qamus, Murtada Zabidi. That's 6. Al-Qamus is a dictionary, a very hefty book. He explained this dictionary. Yani, he made this dictionary a matn. Just like how they do the matns, and they like take a few words and explain in between, take some more words or a word here and explain. He explained it just like a matn. Came out to many volumes. وَهَذَا الَّذِي يَسْتَقِيمُ لُغَةً وَعُرْفًا. This is what is straight. Yani, this is what is right. Linguistically and normally. Here, no one says what's abnormal here except the Wahhabi. Wahhabi case is abnormal in this issue of worship. Nobody else is saying what Wahhabis believe. Because Wahhabi believes that if you were away from someone and then you called out to him, Fulan, then you're a kafir, mushrik, and you worship that one. Or Wahhabi believes that if you were at a cemetery and then you called that one, Fulan, since he's dead, then you worshipped him. So they are deviated here. The Shaykh says, وَلَيْسَ مُجَرَّدُ التَّذَلُّلِ عِبَادَةً لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ. And mere debasement towards another is not worship of other than God. Merely humbling yourself to someone else, that's not worship of other than God. Because mere humbleness is not worship. Worship is the ultimate humbleness. وَإِلَّا لَكَفَرَ كُلُّ مَنْ يَتَذَلَّلُ لِلْمُلُوكِ وَالْعُظَمَاءِ. Or else, everyone who lowers himself to the kings and to the elites would have blasphemed. Everyone who lowers himself, everyone who humbles himself to kings and elites would have blasphemed if merely lowering yourself to someone is worship of that one. وقد ثبت أن معاذ بن جبل لما قدم من الشام سجد لرسول الله. And it's confirmed that Mu'adh ibn Jabal, when he came from the Levant, he prostrated to the Messenger of God. فقال الرسول. And so the Messenger said, ما هذا? What is this? فقال. So he answered, Ya Rasulallah, O Messenger of God, إني رأيت أهل الشام يسجدون لبطارقتهم وأساقفتهم. Indeed, I saw the people of the Levant prostrating to their priests and their generals. وأنت أولى بذلك. And you are more entitled to this. You are more deserving of this behavior. فقال. And so he said, لا تفعل. Don't do that. لو كنت آمرا أحدا أن يسجد لأحد. Had I commanded anyone to prostrate to anyone, لأمرت المرأة أن تسجد لزوجها. I would have commanded the woman to prostrate to her husband. رواه ابن حبان. Ibn Hibban narrated it. وابن ماجه وغيرهما, as well as Ibn Majah and others. وَلَمْ يَقُلْ لَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ كَفَرْتَ. And the Messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wasallam did not say to him, you have blasphemed for this prostration. وَلَا قَالَ لَهُ أَشْرَكْتَ. Nor did he say to him, you have committed paganism by this prostration to a creation. مع أن سجوده للنبي مظهر كبير من مظاهر التذلل. Despite that his prostrating to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a big display of humility. Yani, what Shaykh means to do here is to draw a comparison. It's like he's saying, you Wahhabi, if someone were just to say, oh Messenger of God, he would blaspheme according to you, just because the messenger is not in his presence, or because the messenger died, or for anyone else. And according to you Wahhabi, if someone, it depends on how extreme the Wahhabi is, if someone just asks another person for help, some of you Wahhabis will say he's a kafir for asking a creation for help, or for being afraid of him, or like this. So Shaykh's drawing a comparison. This what you call kufr? This what you call worship of someone else just because he called somebody? Or because he hoped for something from somebody? What about if he makes sujood to him? You're not going to call him kafir for that. Although prostrating to someone is a big display of servility or servileness. So if you want to use this argument for a Wahhabi, you're just going to have to stick to your guns. Yani, stick to the plan. The plan is to refute him by this hadith alone, not to jump all around. If you bring up this hadith of Mu'adh, that means don't go off of it for anything else. Ash-SharH, the explanation. التوسل هو طلب حصول منفعة. The explanation is that at-tawassul, which is seeking a means, it is seeking for a benefit to happen. أو اندفاع مضرة, or seeking for a harm to be repelled. Mean Allah, seeking that from God. بذكر اسم نبي, بذكر اسم نبي, by mentioning the name of a prophet, أو ولي, or a saint. إكراما للمتوسل به, out of honor of the one who is used for this tawassul, out of honor for this one who is taken as a means. And don't be afraid of the word intermediary, and don't be afraid of the word intercessor. Wahhabi's going to expect you to recoil from this when he says to you, so you think you can take an intermediary? You take these as intercessors? Yes. So if he says that's shirk, then no, it's not. Because seeking a means is not worshiping someone other than Allah. Yeah, I saw them as means. I seek medicine as means also. I seek water as means. I seek money as means. I seek exercise as means. I seek all sorts of things as means. Yani, intermediary. The water is intermediary for me. Because I could just ask Allah to quench my thirst only. I could ask him and that's it, and not do anything. And hope that he will do so. Because that's what the Wahhabi is promoting. Wallahu ta'ala ja'ala umur ad-dunya 'ala al-asbab wal-musabbabat. God Almighty made the matters of this world by cause and effect. مع أنه قادر على أن يعطينا الثواب من غير أن نقوم بالأعمال. Although he has the power to give us reward without us doing any deeds. Just like he has the power to relieve our thirst without us seeking any water. He's not going to do that though. He has the power to sustain us, to make money reach us without us doing anything. Which you're not going to just do that though. Why are you not going to do that? Because that's not how the world goes. World goes by cause and effect. That means there's a norm. You have to recognize that norm. And Allah Ta'ala gave us a way in the religion to get some of the things we need. It's called Tawassul. Wahhabis are deprived from this way. They deprived themselves because they followed a misguided man. A misguided man, I think, who thought himself very clever for his take on Tawassul, his unique take on Tawassul. He formulated something in the chapter of Tawassul that's confusion and misguidance. And maybe in his mind he thinks very sound. Qala Allahu Ta'ala, said God, exalted is He, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ, seek help by patience and prayer. وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ, and indeed it is something very significant, except for those who are servile. Those who are servile means those who are comfortable with worship. Those who are comfortable with worship, they don't find a burden in plenty of prayers and plenty of patience. That's the 45th verse of Surat Al-Baqarah. That's a proof for Tawassul. Seek help by patience and prayer. Doesn't say seek help from Allah only. Rather, seek help by these creations is the meaning. That's evidence for Tawassul. وَقَالَ, and God said, وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةَ, seek the means to Him. 35th ayah of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Wahhabi's not going to see this first verse as evidence for Tawassul though, because in his infantile mind, Tawassul is worship of prophets and saints and worship of graves. That's what Tawassul is to him. So when we say seek help by patience and prayer, this is evidence for Tawassul. He's going to say this is no evidence for Tawassul. He might say, this isn't grave worship. What are you talking about? A, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ يُقَرِّبُكُمْ إِلَيْهِ اطْلُبُوهُ, meaning anything that gives you a closer status to God, then seek it. يعني هذه الأسباب, meaning يعني هذه الأسباب, meaning these means. اعملوا الأسباب, use the means that are available to you, is the meaning of the ayah. وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةَ, use the means that are available to you. فَنُحَقِّقَ لَكُمُ الْمُسَبَّبَاتِ, then we will verify for you the effect. Use what causes you have at your disposal, and we will manifest the effects for you. نُحَقِّقُ لَكُمْ مَطَالِبَكُمْ بِهَذِهِ الْأَسْبَابِ, we shall verify for you what you seek by these causes. وهو قادر على تحقيقها بدون هذه الأسباب. And although he has the power to manifest these results without their causes. وقد جعل الله سبحانه وتعالى من الأسباب المعينة من الأسباب المعينة لنا لتحقيق مطالب لنا التوسل بالأنبياء والأولياء. And God, far from imperfection is He, and exalted is He, He made helpful causes for us so that we would realize He made for us helpful causes to get what we want, Yani. That's the meaning there. He made for us, Yani, amongst the helpful causes that He made for us to accomplish our goals, amongst the helpful reasons that He made for us to accomplish our goals is Tawassul by the prophets and the saints. في حال حياتهم, during their lives, وبعد مماتهم, and after their deaths. فنحن نسأل الله بهم رجاء تحقيق مطالبنا. And so we ask God by them, hoping for the manifestation of our goals. فنقول, and we therefore say, Allahumma inni as'aluka bijahi Rasulillah. Oh God, we do indeed ask you by the status of the Messenger of God. أو بحرمة Rasulillah, or by the honor or nobility of the Messenger of God. أن تقضي حاجتنا, to fulfill our need. وتفرج كربنا, and to relieve our calamities. And to relieve our calamity. أو نقول, or we might say, Allahumma bijahi abdil qadir bijahi abdil qadir al-Jilani. Oh God, by the status of Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. وَنَحْوَ ذَلِكَ, or we say something like that. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ جَائِزٌ, that is certainly permissible. وَإِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ ذَلِكَ الْوَهَّابِيَّةِ, no one forbade this but the Wahhabis, yani following Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah is the one who forbade this. He is the source of this deviance. It's not an old deviance, like it's not a very ancient one. It is old comparatively, because Ibn Taymiyyah is like 700 years ago. But even that really is not that old. There's deviances that go back 1,000 years or more. So 700 years ago, yani halfway point between ourselves and the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. It's only an approximation too. Here we are 1,400 years after the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. 700 years after the Prophet comes some guy with some weird ideas about Tawassul. And for some reason, some people didn't recognize that this is a bid'ah, although nobody in the world ever talked about this like he did. Rather, they accepted from him his unique perspective. Despite that he is a controversial figure, and despite that they claim to be warriors against all innovation and they only want the pure way from the Sunnah. Then, what they're going to do? Every proof you give them for Tawassul, they're going to try to explain to you why it's not a proof for Tawassul. The story of Ibn Umar, when he had the sickness in his leg, The story of Bilal ibn al-Harith when he went to the Prophet's grave to seek help during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab. They're going to tell you all these reasons why all these things are not proofs for Tawassul. And their answers are really garbage. فَشَذُّوا بِذَلِكَ عَنْ أَهْلِ السُّنَّةِ. And so they have deviated by that from the people of the prophetic way. فَالتَّوَسُّلُ بِالْأَنْبِيَاءِ وَالْأَوْلِيَاءِ جَائِزٌ. And so, tawassul by prophets and saints is permissible. فِي حَالِ حَضْرَتِهِمْ وَفِي حَالِ غَيْبَتِهِمْ. Whether they were present or absent. The Wahhabi makes a difference between this. Taking it from Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah came up with details for this case. What do you do to debunk Ibn Taymiyyah's conditions and details? There's a hadith. كل شرط ليس في كتاب الله فهو باطل وإن كان 100 شرط. Every condition that's not from the book of God is invalid, even if it were 100 conditions. So Ibn Taymiyyah comes along and says, wait, you can't make tawassul now because prophet is not present, or the saint you want is not present. And so where'd you get this condition from? وَمُنَادَاتُهُمْ جَائِزَةٌ فِي حَالِ غَيْبَتِهِمْ وَفِي حَالِ حَضْرَتِهِمْ. And calling upon them is permissible in their absence and in their presence. So also, what's the Wahhabi going to say to somebody? He's going to say, do you call upon the dead? He's going to say that to someone who's unsuspecting. He's going to say it to someone who's unsuspecting. That means he's going to blindside someone. A person doesn't know the angle that he's going to come from. Where are you coming from with this? Do I call the... No, I don't call the dead. He doesn't even know what the Wahhabi is setting him up for. Why he's saying this to him. And that Wahhabi, this extremist Wahhabi, he's also going to say, you can't call someone who's not in your presence. That's shirk. So how did you make such a leap? Just for the fact that he's not in my presence means that I worshipped him altogether when I called him? What if I was, because I'm waiting for him, Yani, he's late, and I got frustrated and I said, Fulan, I have to take my shahada now? So probably he's going to say, yeah, if you asked him. You actually just asked him that. He's probably going to say, yeah, you got to take your shahada. Because if he says no, then you tell him, what are you talking about? كما دل على ذلك الأدلة الشرعية, just as the religious proofs prove. Yani, making tawassul by prophets and saints is permissible in their presence or their absence, and calling upon them is permissible in their presence or in their absence. This is what the religious evidence proves. فليس معنى العبادة مجرد نداء حي أو ميت. And so, the meaning of worship is not merely calling someone, alive or dead. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to become worship because the called one is alive or dead. Yani, according to Wahhabi, if he's alive and he's right there in your face, so he said, yeah, Fulan, then there's no kufr here. And then if he died right there and he fell down, he said, yeah, Fulan, now you're a kafir because you called the dead one. في حال غيبته أو ميت في حال غيبته, يعني, or while he's absent. كما قالت الوهابية, as the Wahhabis said, that's their madhab. بل لم ينقل ذلك عن أحد من علماء اللغة في تفسيرهم لمعنى العبادة. In fact, this is not logged about any one of the scholars of the language in their explanation of the meaning of ibadah, worship. بل قال إمام اللغويين, rather, the Imam of the linguists, الذين ألفوا في لغة العرب, the linguists who authored about the language of the Arabs. Al-Farra, this Imam of the linguists, he said, Al-ibadatu ta'atu ma'al khudu'. Worship, ibadah, is the obedience. That obedience with the humility. Worship is that obedience with that humility. You don't want to say here, worship is obedience with humility only. You want to say the obedience or that obedience with the or that humility. So you can make a signal to something more, something bigger than what might come to mind if you don't say it. Imagine someone said, I saw it. So he said, what? And he said to you, that one. And they said, oh, because when he says that one means, it's the special one. The special one. That's what al here means. The special. Ibadah is the special obedience with the special humility. وَبِهَذَا فَسَّرُوا قَوْلَهُ تَعَالَى. And this is the way they explained the word of God. Exalted is He, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. You we worship. أي نطيعك الطاعة التي معها الخضوع. This means we obey you with that obedience that has that humility. وَالْخُضُوعُ مَعْنَاهُ التَّذَلُّلُ. And humility, its meaning is the debasement, the lowering of oneself. The self-deprecation. ومن الأدلة على جواز التوسل الحديث الذي رواه الطبراني. And one of the proofs for the permissibility of tawassul is the hadith narrated by At-Tabarani. وَصَحَّحَهُ. And that one which he authenticated. والذي فيه أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم علم الأعمى. That one in which the messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم taught the blind man أن يتوسل به, to make tawassul by him. فذهب, so the blind man went فتوسل به في حالة غيبته, and he made tawassul by the Prophet while the Prophet was absent. That means not in the blind man's presence. The Prophet was where he was. The blind man wasn't where the Prophet was. He left from where the Prophet was to go do what the Prophet told him to do. And the Prophet told him to make tawassul by him. So he did that in the Prophet's absence. وَعَادَ إِلَى مَجْلِسِ النَّبِيِّ. Then he came back to the Prophet's session. وَقَدْ أَبْصَرَ. And he could see. وَكَانَ مِمَّا عَلَّمَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And among what the Messenger of God taught him صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يقول, is to say, Allahumma inni as'aluka. Oh God, I do indeed request of you. Wa atawajjahu ilayka. And I direct myself to you. Bi nabiyika, by your prophet. Muhammad, Nabi ar-Rahmah. Muhammad, the prophet of mercy. Ya Muhammad. Oh Muhammad. Inni atawajjahu bika ila rabbi fi hajati. I do indeed direct myself by you to my Lord in my need. وَيُسَمِّي حَاجَتَهُ, and then one names his need, and then he says, لِتُقُضَى لِي, so that it will be fulfilled for me. If you haven't memorized this dua, then yani, what are you waiting for? It's very important dua. It might sound like it's long, but look at it here, just with your eye. That's not long. If that's long to you, then miniaturize it. That's very short. That's yani, it's 2 lines. It's just 2 lines only. If you take this first part, Allahumma inni, here. Look how much space it takes up down here. It's just 2 lines. This dua, and also dua of istikhara, these 2 are very, very, very important for the Muslim. فبهذا الحديث بطل زعمهم أنه لا يجوز التوسل إلا بالحي الحاضر. So by this hadith, their claim that tawassul is only valid, yani is not valid, but by someone living and present, is debunked. Their claim is debunked by this hadith. لأن هذا الأعمى لم يكن حاضرا في المجلس حين توسل برسول الله. Because this blind man was not present in the session when he made the tawassul by the messenger of God. بدليل أن راوي الحديث عثمان بن حنيف قال, which is proven by the fact that the reporter of the hadith, Uthman ibn Hunayf, said, لما روى حديث الأعمى, when he was relaying the hadith of the blind man, فوالله ما تفرقنا ولا طال بنا المجلس حتى دخل علينا الرجل وقد أبصر. He said, I swear to God, we had not dispersed, nor had the session even been long, before the man came back to us and he could see. فمن قوله حتى دخل علينا علمنا أن هذا الرجل لم يكن حاضرا في المجلس حين توسل برسول الله. And so his saying, before he came back to us, from this we knew that this man was not present in the session when he made tawassul by the messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وأما الدليل على جواز التوسل برسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد وفاته. And as for the evidence for the permissibility of making tawassul by the messenger of God after his death, that permissible thing that we wouldn't have to bring the proof for it had it not been for Ibn Taymiyyah making up conditions. فَيُؤْخَذُ أَيْضًا مِنْ حَدِيثِ عُثْمَانَ بْنِ حُنَيْفٍ. It is also taken from the same hadith of Uthman ibn Hunayf, الَّذِي رَوَاهُ الطَّبَرَانِيُّ وَصَحَّحَهُ, that one that's narrated by Al-Tabarani and authenticated by him. فَإِنَّ فِيهِ أَنَّهُ عَلَّمَ رَجُلًا هَذَا الدُّعَاء. Because in that hadith is that Uthman ibn Hunayf taught a man this dua, this same dua, الَّذِي فِيهِ تَوَسُّلٌ بِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ, this dua that has in it making tawassul by the messenger of God, لأنه كان له حاجة عند سيدنا عثمان بن عفان في خلافته. Because this man needed something from Master Uthman ibn Affan while he was the caliph. That's why Uthman ibn Hunayf taught this dua to the man, because that man needed something from the caliph, who's Uthman ibn Affan. So what we're saying here is there's two Uthmans in this story, so don't get confused. There's Uthman ibn Affan. He's in this story because he was the caliph, the third caliph after Abu Bakr and then after Umar. He's the third caliph. So this means the Prophet passed away already. Alayhi salatu wassalam. And during his time, this other Uthman, the one who was actually in the Prophet's presence when the blind man came, he taught the dua that the Prophet taught to the blind man to a man, because that man needed something from the Caliph. وَمَا كَانَ يَتَيَسَّرُ لَهُ الْاجْتِمَاعُ بِهِ. And it wasn't easy for him to meet with the Caliph to get his need fulfilled. حتى قرأ هذا الدعاء. Not until he said this supplication. فَتَيَسَّرَ أَمْرُهُ بِسُرْعَةٍ. And then his matter was facilitated for him swiftly. وَقَضَى لَهُ سَيِّدُنَا عُثْمَانُ بْنُ عَفَّانَ حَاجَتَهُ. And then Master Uthman ibn Affan fulfilled his need. Once a brother came to me, told me he needed to talk to Sheikh Samir. I told him, do this dua. I gave him dua of hajjah. I saw that brother very shortly after that. He's walking right with Sheikh Samir. The two of them walking together. MashaAllah. How about we stop here?